Before anything else, listen. Just listen. Because the story I'm about to tell you is true. Every sound, every shadow, every heartbeat. People call me insane. They whisper that I lost my mind long ago. But I promise you, my senses have never been sharper. In fact, they became too sharp. Sharp enough to notice things no one else sees, or hears, or feels crawling beneath the skin. It all began with the old man's eye. Not the old man himself. He had never wronged me. He never raised his voice. He never raised his hand. No, it was his eye. That pale, cloudy, dead-looking eye. Whenever it fell on me, I felt something cold latch onto my spine, something that whispered in the dark corners of my mind. And once the thought entered my head, it never left. A single, terrible thought, that I must never look at me again. So I waited for night, because night hides everything. At midnight, I crept into his room. Slow, silent, careful. I moved so gently that even the shadows didn't stir. The old man slept, breathing softly. His cursed eye was closed. For 7 nights I returned. Each time, the room was so dark that even my breath seemed too loud. I opened the lantern just enough to let out a sliver of light. A single thread of gold that cut through the darkness. But the eye stayed shut. So I waited, and I listened. To the ticking of the clock, to the whisper of the wind, to the blood in my own ears. Then came the 8th night. When I pushed the door open, a faint sound escaped the lantern. Just a tiny metal click. But it was enough to wake the old man. He sat upright in the pitch-black room. I could feel his fear trembling in the air. I didn't move. For an hour I stood there, perfectly still, like a corpse standing on its feet. Then I opened the lantern, and there it was, the eye, open, wide, cold, watching me like some dead, hateful thing. In that moment I heard it, a heartbeat. First it was soft, barely a whisper, thump, thump, but the sound grew, louder, faster, pounding like a drum filled with blood and terror. Thump, thump, thump. The old man's fear was feeding it. His heart was beating like it wanted to break free from his chest. I felt it shaking the shadows, shaking the walls, shaking my skull. I knew the neighbors would hear. I couldn't allow that. I threw myself across the room. The old man screamed. A single, sharp cry that sliced the darkness. Then I smothered him beneath the heavy bed. His heartbeat thrashed, then faltered, then faded into a suffocating silence. The eye was dead, and for the first time in many nights, I felt peace. But peace never lasts. Morning came. With it, a knock on the door. 3 police officers smiling politely. A neighbor had heard a scream, they said. Just routine. Routine. If only they knew. I invited them inside. I showed them the house. I answered every question calmly. I even brought chairs and asked them to sit, right above the hidden body. We talked. We laughed. I felt victorious. But then, a sound slipped into the room. Soft, distant, like something deep underground. Thump. I straightened up. I listened. The officers kept talking. Thump, thump. My mouth went dry. The sound grew steadier, clearer. Thump, thump, thump. It was the heartbeat. His heartbeat. The one that had stopped beneath my hands. The one that should never beat again. The sound clawed at my ears, filled the room. It drowned out the voices, the chairs, the air. I spoke faster. I laughed too loudly, but the sound kept rising. Thump, thump, thump. The officers smiled politely. They heard nothing, nothing. But I heard everything. The heartbeat became a thunder, a scream, punishment. It was the old man calling for justice, calling for revenge, calling for me. I couldn't escape it. I couldn't silence it. Finally, I broke. Stop! I screamed. Tear up the floorboards. Here, right here, is his heart. His heart, still beating. And now, as I tell you this story, tell me something. Can you hear it too? Thump, thump, thump.